It's Mazzy. Welcome back to a Lakeside chat. Today, though, the location, a beautiful location from West Seattle near Alki Beach, looking towards downtown across Puget Sound. So I'm actually not by a lake. I'm by the Sound. Beautiful area by Elliot Bay, leads into Elliot Bay. There's a whole history of Seattle, which I'm not going to tell you. Go search it somewhere else. Been here 11 years, and it's just a gorgeous area. It's just a green, the Emerald City is literally that, green and beautiful and precipitation. But even when it says it's going to rain, you might have days like this. So how can you knock that in the 60s? Pretty wonderful, huh? For late spring, early summer. I've chosen 5 records today that all relate, and I think they all owe a nod to this first artist, and that is the legendary Jimmie Rodgers, or the singing brakeman, the yodeler, blues yodeler, folk, blues, country, kind of the beginning of modern country music. He was one of the first artists in the inaugural Hall of Fame for the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1961. One of the few crossover, there have been several. He was included in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as an influencer, go figure, or whatever they call that, the people that really influence rock and roll music. And of course, Jimmie Rodgers was one of them. He died at 35, unfortunately. He had tuberculosis and pleurisy later and died, but he really made a mark. He worked as a brakeman in the railroad from Texas east and wrote about everything from California to hobos to train life, but never made it to California. Opens up side 2 with In the Jailhouse Now. You might know that from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? A lot of people covered his songs, a lot of rock musicians, a lot of country musicians, a lot of blues musicians. So he's very, very influential here. I mean, he's influential like Woody Guthrie is. More people seem to know about Woody Guthrie in popular music than Jimmie Rodgers, but I think everyone should have a Jimmie Rodgers record in their collection. Next, in fact, a specific tribute to Jimmie Rodgers, a double album that came out in 1969 by Merle Haggard and the Strangers. And this is literally a tribute. Same train, different time, sings the great songs of Jimmie Rodgers, a 2-record set. Of course, Merle Haggard, like all the other country artists, were very influenced by Jimmie Rodgers. He had done covers of Jimmie Rodgers songs as early as 1967, 66, 67 on Lonesome Fugitive album. This is interesting because he does a little bit of narration, a little bit of introductions to some of the songs, not all the songs, just to get a sense who Jimmie was in his song. Now, what's great about this Merle Haggard and the Strangers record, first of all, you have the Fabulous Strangers, the great band that was backing Merle all throughout the 1960s into the 1970s. You get a little James Burton on here playing guitar and dobro, but you get a more produced sound. Now, it doesn't take away of the essence of the Jimmie Rodgers songs. In fact, it opens it up and it brings it to a new audience. He doesn't change it. He's got the soul of those songs and does a great version. So as a double record, this is a wonderful introduction. If you want something a little more hi-fi in a way, so the Merle Haggard record is a wonderful way to get into Jimmie Rodgers. In the early 70s, I was very much a fan of the singer-songwriter, country rock music, obviously, going back to 68 with the Byrds, Sweetheart of the Rodeo, Buck Owens records, Merle Haggard records, of course. And in the early 70s, the singer-songwriter thing, everything from James Taylor. Now, not complicated music, but it's a really beautiful record. And I want to show the second record, Honky Tonk Stardust Cowboy by Jonathan Edwards. Of course, in 1971, he had a really big top 10 hit called Sunshine, and that is the better record probably, but this is a wonderful record as well. This is 1972, his second record. Little more country. That one was folky, pop, rock in a way, soft rock you might call it, which is okay. This is more country, more dobro. A lot of original country type styling folk songs, and he'll do some covers on here. Obviously, one of my favorite covers on side 2 is Colin Young's Sugar Babe, a song that the Youngbloods recorded that has just a great good feeling sounding record on here. He just has this soothing tenor voice. In fact, I'm a fan of these tenor singers. There's a couple in here. Merle Haggard has it in a way as well. But this is a really beautiful acoustic-based recording, more in the country vein than pop and rock, but still a wonderful record. And of course, you know, the obligatory take your shirt off if you're a young man with long hair in the 1970s. So there you go. Next is a record from 1973, Last Train to Hicksville, Dan Hicks and the Hotlicks. This is a beautifully recorded record by Tommy LaPuma, who was producing these records for Dan Hicks and the Hotlicks on Blue Thumb Records. This is the last record while they were together. He really mixed Western swing with the Boswell sisters, with country music, with folk music, with pop music, with jazz. He had a great field with violin and stand-up bass, and of course the singers of Marianne Price and Naomi Eisenberg as the Lakettes. Really, really wonderful. I'd say the only track on here that doesn't seem to fit in, I like her voice, but Naomi Eisenberg's Success. It's a belter of a song that doesn't fit with the mood of the Western swing and the countrified sound on this record and the folk sound, again, in the Boswell sister harmony things. So in April 1973, a month after this album was recorded, Dan Hicks and the Hotlicks played their final two shows, and it was announced as their final shows, and I never really understood why they broke up, why they felt. They were kind of on a roll. They had built a following. Those the live record, Where's the Money, and Striking It Rich. Tommy LaPuma did a great job and had a great sound again with them. Very jazzy, Western swing-like, just a really interesting mix for the time. Obviously not psychedelic, not quite in the singer-songwriter thing, but they were amazing live. The next month after they recorded this, they played their final two shows at Winterland, and it was announced as their farewell shows. I went to both shows. They were the opening act for the Kinks, so I saw the Kinks 2 nights in a row. And during that, Marianne Price would obviously meet the Kinks and Ray Davis, and would join up and tour after that with the Kinks and work on their Preservation Act records. So that's kind of a connection there. But I think this is a really wonderful record. Again, one of my favorite songs also, aside from, you know, the jazzy, swinging Payday Blues, I Asked My Doctor, there's a certain sense of humor in Dan Hicks singing and the arrangements. There's a beautiful version of Sweetheart on here that Marianne Price sings solo, and it's a killer version, the best version. I think the year or two after this, Maria Muldaur would sing that song. It would be the title of her album, one of the lines from that song. I'm a waitress in a donut shop, you know that song, but Waitress, Sweetheart, Waitress in a Donut Shop. Great song. I think this is the definitive version, although I do like Maria Muldaur's version on that. So, Along Comes the Viper, Dan Hicks. Dan Hicks did write in that way, in that vintage style of the 1930s and 1940s, and it's just beautiful. So Dan Hicks and the Hotlicks, their final record, Warner Brothers did release an unreleased record years later, and of course, later in the 90s, Dan Hicks and the Hotlicks would return. There was a fabulous, huge birthday event for Dan Hicks at Davies Symphony Hall that I attended with all these guest stars. And, you know, I don't know if that's been recorded or ever released. Probably on a video. Probably has. I don't have it. But Dan Hicks and the Hotlicks, a great record. You can get their records cheap. I highly recommend their first album on Epic Records is really brilliant too. And I Scare Myself was a great song, and I believe what Thomas Dolby covered one of those songs early on. And lastly, Colin Young. Of course, that beautiful tenor voice, lead singer of the Youngbloods. Of course, that anthem, Get Together. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Now, this was the first solo record he had done since 1965. He was a folk singer before he joined the Youngbloods, before the whole folk rock scene was happening with the Youngbloods and Lovin' Spoonful and those East Coast bands here. Of course, he moves in with the rest of the band to Point Reyes in Marin County, West Marin County in the Bay Area, and has some interesting records for Warner Brothers. And in fact, Warner Brothers gave them a custom label called Raccoon Records, and they did a lot of interesting things on Raccoon, not just the Youngbloods, solo records. This was Colin Young's first solo record after he was in the Youngbloods. In fact, they were still together then, but once this record got a little bit of attention, he would leave and go on as a solo act. He might be considered by some in that yacht rock vein later. His songs were very smooth and jazzy and folksy. The band relocated to Marin County. They played a lot in the Bay Area. I saw the Youngbloods and Colin Young quite a bit from around 1970, 71, and 72. But this is a beautiful record. I think this is his best solo record. After this, the records are more produced, a little more jazzy and flutes. This is really stripped back. Acoustic guitar, dobro. He does a lot of covers on here, and some might think these covers are mild and soft. For instance, he does a version of Sweet Little 16, the Chuck Berry song, 6 Days on the Road. He covers that. Born in Chicago. But he does it in a really kind of soft, folky way. Good Times. It is literally a Good Times record. The song Together is a beautiful, beautiful song. I think he always wanted to write another anthem, because always he was followed by that version of Get Together that they did. That was been in every movie about the 1960s. Song written by Chet Powers, who was Dino Valente, who was in and out of Quicksilver Messenger service. But it is a great song. And he does do one on here that I think, in my mind, wanted to be the next anthem. And it's a 4 minutes, 30-second long song for the time called Peace Song. And it's got this beautiful acoustic guitar and a dobro. And that's pretty much it for the most part, in his beautiful tenor voice. You might think of it as a cliche song about the war and about hunger and about racism. It's got all the key elements, and it's a song that's as topical today as it was in 1972. This is a beautiful record. It's called Together, 1972. This is on Raccoon Records, again, that custom label that they got from Warner Brothers, and they were making a lot of interesting offbeat records at the time too, and working with a couple of interesting folky, freak folk in some cases. Michael Hurley, I believe, as well, and Jerry Corbett, one of the members, did a solo album as well. So there were interesting things happening, and the Youngblood records around that time are kind of frenetic, piecemeal, interesting, never a great record, but they all have moments that are wonderful, and I have all those in my collection. This was after they left RCA. I did shout out a few times before and showcase, I think it might have been the last record they did for RCA, Elephant Mountain. Impex recently put out a version of that record, which is stunning, and that's a really interesting record, and I think an important record. And all these artists were definitely influenced by Jimmie Rodgers, the singing brakeman. Thanks for watching out here off the sound. The sound matters, doesn't it? Mazzy loves you.
Sometimes I can't help crying. People, when I hear about the dying, young men, women, and children, by the violence have been chosen. We gotta stop. Yes, people, we gotta stop. My God, yes. Sisters and brothers, do you hear me? gotta stop killing one another. Sometimes I can't help thinking when I've been sipping, drinking, while the powers of the world are struggling, the children of the world are starving. While the prayers of peace are rising, the sons of war are dying. People, we gotta stop. Hey, yes, we gotta stop. My God, yes. Sisters and brothers, do you hear me? We've gotta stop killing one another. Sometimes I can't help wondering what in the world is happening. While the white man's power is ruling, the black man's power is threatening. While the red man's power is sleeping, the yellow man's power is growing and growing. People, we gotta stop. Hey, yes, we gotta stop. My God, yes. Sisters and brothers, do you hear me? We've gotta stop killing one another. Learn to take care of each other. Lord, and try to love